Hi, this is Jada Ingleton, content editor for the Washington Informer, here with a very special guest today to talk about one of Washington National Opera's newest productions.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Mariposa. I'm a second-year Cafritz Young Artist here with the Washington National Opera, and I'm singing the role of Rebecca Nurse in our production of The Crucible.
Welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So when you think of The Crucible, what comes to mind?
A lot of things. It's a story about, I feel like the main part of the story is about how far human beings will go to get what they want, sometimes without thinking of other people's consequences. And it's interesting because in The Crucible, we're doing it in the play and the opera are set in period, so during the 1600s Puritan times, and we are also doing it in period. But it's interesting to see how a lot of the things that happen there, mass hysteria, groupthink, things like greed, but at the same time, human goodness, it's still kind of relevant to today. So it's really about the lengths humans will go to get what they want, and the ideas of good, bad, the truth, and inherent human goodness in some ways.
So, of course, I learned recently that this isn't your first production with WNO. So how has these different experiences and projects elevated or influenced your artistry or relationship with opera?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've had the privilege of doing a host of different roles for WNO, from children's operas, which are really great to get young audiences interested and falling in love with this art form, to comedic works. And I feel like The Crucible is one of the more serious roles I have had to encounter and learn during my time here at the opera. And I feel like being in the Crucible itself is just so empowering to me as an opera singer, as an artist, because it's a story that I am very proud to tell. Even if my role is not the biggest, I have a very crucial role in that I am one of the people who expound on the power of love, the power of care in a society where people are just out to get each other. And I feel like that doing this role is making me proud to keep on doing opera, because I feel that in opera we get to see the whole range of human emotion that sometimes we don't get on paper, on screen. There's something about being on stage live and using every inch of your being in your voice to express something that sometimes can't be captured in words. And so it makes me proud to be in this art form and to be part of such a company that is doing important works that make us smile, that make children laugh, important works that make people think. Yeah.
Very important. So is there anything with this specific production of The Crucible that's new coming to the stage or very different from the original play?
Well, let me start with the things that are very similar. So I think that this Robert Ward's Crucible is basically a play set to music. It's not an opera in the sense of like we have the grand arias, we have the grand ensembles. We do have the grand ensembles, but I like to think of everything in the opera as conversation, relationships, people just speaking their minds, thinking and interacting. I think what's different for our production is that we are doing it at the Listener. It premiered at Glimmerglass, and of course, like Listener, we are more limited in terms of stage. We don't have curtains, things like that, and so we've adjusted a lot to make the whole flow of the story more organic for the space that we are doing it in. So I feel like that's a big, like, maybe more technical difference, but yeah. Story-wise, there are some differences from the play. The play, for example, you have two judges at the end, Judge Danforth and Judge Hawthorne. Here in the opera, it's condensed to one character. And I feel like it's pretty effective because like you see more depth in each of the characters by kind of reducing it. Of course, the Crucible opera play, it has a lot of people, regardless. But I think that's what makes it very exciting. You see interactions, and I feel like human to human. It's what makes any story really exciting. Hmm.
So I want to piggyback off your point about, the beauty of opera is really seeing the range of the human emotion.
Hmm.
And specifically with the Crucible, or even in any production that you've done with WNO, how do you both allow yourself to become invested in that character, maybe assuming a little bit of
Hmm.
their thoughts or anything of that sort, but then also keeping that distance for your own sake and sanity?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because I mean there are different schools of acting. Some people really get into it and try to like simulate the life. My personal acting and learning style is really to learn everything I can about my character. So doing a lot of research, looking at the history of the person, but at the same time, seeing myself in aspects of the character. For example, I am playing a woman who migrated from England to America in the 1600s. It's not much to relate for who I am now, but there are parts of her life that I empathize with, parts of her life that maybe I'm confused with. And I feel like that my relation to the character and how I see the character informs a lot of how I play her on stage. So there's a lot of room for me to imagine and to insert, maybe to imagine and picture different scenarios in her life based on how I understand her and based on the things that I've lived through. I feel like it's the same way I approach every character I would play. For example, last December I played a fox. It's very, but yeah, but you look at the story, you look at the history, and you see bits and pieces of the story and the history that you like, that you question, that maybe you dislike, maybe you don't understand, and then you fill in the gaps. Hmm.
So how do you make an opera, especially with the historical period context of it?
Hmm.
How do you make an opera, what's the word, maybe approachable, or not even approachable, or just accessible to the average attendee?
Mm. I think with the Crucible in particular, the work itself is, I would say it's accessible to anyone who is watching it. That's the power of like well-written plays, well-written operas. But I think for our production, I mean, when I first read the play in high school, it wasn't something that I it wasn't something that I had to take time really to understand. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's the power of that work itself. So I feel like our role here in the opera company is to let the story come alive through how we are on stage basically. And it's a lot of seemingly basic things such as singing in such a way that our diction is not clouded by singing technique. It's about making sure that we ourselves understand our relationship with other people on stage. That way it translates directly and the audience can clearly see um, what we're doing. So again, I mentioned we are doing this still in period. So we are dressed in Puritan costume and it's like nothing, it's not anywhere near how we are nowadays. But I feel like if we are able to really clearly delineate our interactions, who we are, how we see other people in the story, and how we make of the situation that is unfolding in the story now, I feel like it's gonna be very effective in bridging that gap of opera to the audience a lot more.
I love that. And just speaking to that point, can you tell me, in your perspective, what is the power of arts, period, when it comes to telling these old form stories or just bringing these hidden messages to life in modern times?
Hmm. Oh, wow. That is a wonderful question. I mean, I feel like the arts are really a way for us to explore a lot of things in ourselves that we sometimes don't realize. Uh, we sometimes don't realize, oh, I think this way, I feel this way. But the arts are a way to allow us to understand ourselves more and also to enjoy beauty in our day-to-day lives. A lot of people may think that opera is like a high and mighty art form. I feel like at its core, opera is about humans. And we all want to understand ourselves more. We all want to understand each other more. And I feel like the arts are a way to really help us do that. Mhm.
I love that.